Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special segment of the Smite Update. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our special guest this week. We do have Managing Director of Mortality eSports, Justin Dellario. How's it going, Justin?
It's good, Octane. How are you doing?
Doing good. Appreciate you coming on the show tonight. There's been a lot going on with Mortality, with Parabellum, with Its Gosu over the last few weeks here now, and it's great to actually have you on to kind of go ahead and confirm all those for us. So those the folks at home, what we're going to go over today is we're going to go over, Justin, kind of his gaming and competitive background a little bit, talk a little bit about Parabellum's history, its Gosu merger, and then how Mortality esports plays into this and the future of Mortality moving forward. So Justin, you ready to jump into it?
Yeah, definitely. Shoot away.
All right, cool. So let's go ahead and dive in. Tell a little bit about who you are and your experience within the competitive video game industry.
Well, I am a former military
Mm-hmm.
vet. Well, not sorry, you're not a former military vet. I'm former active duty. Currently work for the U.S. government,
Okay.
but I am a gamer. I've been playing online games since I was in middle school.
Okay.
Started off with Warcraft, Starcraft, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being that high schooler who, when normally your mom has a hard time waking you up in the morning, I was waking
Yep.
up at 3, 4 a.m. so I could play a game or two with the Euros or the Koreans before I had to go to school because they were the best
Wow.
competition.
Hardcore. Hardcore. Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, but then went through high school. I was an athlete too. Went
Okay.
into college, and then I joined the military. Joined the military, took a break from gaming for a while, and then started gaming pretty hard again, doing some
Okay.
of the MMO stuff in World of Warcraft. I played MOBAs all along too, but when MLG decided to pick up a season or two of World of Warcraft Arena, I think that's maybe what, like 5, 6 years ago
Yeah,
now
quite a
already.
few years ago, actually.
I was really heavily involved in that.
Okay.
I was a top player in World of Warcraft at the time in the arena scene, but I also was very active in reaching out to MLG and trying to get more events to happen
Mm-hmm.
outside of just sponsoring the normal BlizzCon circuit and going leading up to the BlizzCon championships. But not a whole lot came to fruition for World of Warcraft
No, not at all.
esports because it's just not the type of game that
Yeah.
you can rely on to be consistent enough and have the same set variables time over time to actually have two people compete and it be what I would consider fair. Um, Anyway, I moved on from that. I fast forward a little. I managed Heroes and New Earth team when the esports scene in that game was a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
Some past experience with managing a League of Legends team. I was heavily involved in a gaming organization called Voodoo.
Hmm.
Helped them gain some sponsors out in the open. One of which was Razer.
Okay.
Um, and Fast forward again, just to kind of fill my passion for being
Sure.
involved in esports, I actually worked for a pretty large esport organization who I won't name because I've signed a contract not to use their name in the promotion of my own esport
Sure.
endeavors.
Sure. Sure.
However, I was the director of contracts at
Okay.
that organization.
Okay.
They wanted me to become a full-time worker. There was no way that they were going to pay me enough to quit my
Yeah.
day job.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back to just being a gamer. Started playing Smite, well, pretty much since the beginning of Smite.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Messed around a little bit with some teams. I was on Team Resist playing
Okay.
support. We started doing what we called the Resist Weekly 5v5 tournaments. That turned into eventually the Parabellum Weekly. But sometime before that, my partner and I, Trident, which most people would know him
Yep.
as in Smite, we decided, let's start our own organization. Let's run these tournaments ourselves, and let's look at picking up a Smite team. That's kind of where it all started with picking up a Smite team and sponsoring it. I had the experience, Trident had the passion.
Sure.
I have some business sense for my day job, so that's kind of where that's kind of my evolution into being an esport organization. owner, but go ahead, I'll let you ask the next question.
No,
I know
no.
I
That, I mean, that
kind
was
of
kind of interesting. I mean, for sure. I mean, that kind of jumps us right into the next question, which was, tell us a little bit about Parabellum because that's, I think, what is most known at this point. It was an organization that was rather young into the Smite scene. So tell us a little bit about that, and then how did you get? You kind of talked to us a little bit about how you got involved with Parabellum. You started it with another gentleman. But so yeah, just tell us a little bit about Parabellum overall before we jump into like the merger and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, Parabellum eSports. I wanted to start an esport organization.
Mm-hmm.
Cody, who's known as Trident,
Mm-hmm.
he wanted to start an esport organization with me. We both determined what would be our acceptable investment,
Sure.
um, which would cover startup, branding, developing web content and web presence like
Mm-hmm.
your website, Twitter, etc.
Sure.
And then we decided to shoot for specific games that are not only popular but easier to build fan bases in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we also chose to take a heavy focus in Smite because we both love
Mm-hmm.
Smite. We've been playing it for however long now, and we know a lot of people there. So we almost had an artificial fan base of our friends once we got started.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we had our tournament. So we picked up a League of Legends challenger team. They were formerly called YSO Esports. We signed them and they became Parabellum. They started playing for us.
Now, how long ago
And
was that? Sorry to interrupt. Like, how long ago did you pick them up, a League of Legends team?
that was December, January timeframe that those negotiations started. We were talking to them as they
Okay.
were preparing to go into the Coke Zero Challenger Series 1.
Okay, and so what was it like? And I'm just trying to flip back and forth between the two scenes. What was it like coming into the League of Legends scene a little bit later on? Because like, right, League of Legends is far well established now, and so that was not too long ago. What was it like looking at a League of Legends team at that time? Was this a very young team? Were they, quite matured then? How did that work out for you guys with kind of negotiations and stuff like that within the League of Legends scene?
Well, the team that we targeted was very young,
Okay.
still is very young. Um, They had not been around long,
Okay.
but just from getting to know the players, learning a little bit of their backstory, I
Mm-hmm.
saw that they were all pretty young
Mm-hmm.
and kind of committed to each other,
Okay.
which is honestly one of the biggest gambles when you're targeting that next level of teams that's not necessarily the top pros,
Mm-hmm.
is how long will these rosters stay together? How long will
Yeah.
my investment actually be worth it? We found a great bunch of young guys who are in it to become pros. They want to play in the LCS. They're
Okay.
committed. They practice every day. And we've seen a lot of improvement from them even since we first picked them up.
Okay.
So I would say not too difficult. It was just about finding contacts for people because you kind of have to go by what you see on the internet, who
Mm-hmm.
you see on streams, and then just start pinging people in Skype that might have contacts, Facebooking people, asking for their managers' names and contact.
Mm.
And lucky enough, we got to talking with the team. Like I said, they were called YSO Esports,
Hmm.
and they eventually signed and became Parabellum Esports.
Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Simultaneous to that, we were working at picking up a Smite team. Uh, Smite, very difficult to pick a team up,
Okay.
and that I would say is worth the investment. And that's not a knock at the players out there.
Yeah.
There's so many great players in Smite, and there's so many teams with a lot of potential, who just don't seem to want to like stick it out, stay
Mm-hmm.
together, and practice. But you have to worry about the 2 to 3 week teams that
Mm-hmm.
don't last very long, even though they look like they have so much potential. And then you have to worry about the other issue with when you approach a really good team, because we did approach some really good
Okay.
non-sponsored teams. And at the time, given the amount of resources we had to provide, it wasn't enough to convince the players
Mm.
on those teams that they should really join an organization since high-res fits the bill for almost everything.
Yeah, and we briefly talked about it just before the show, and you had mentioned that they do High Res does a very good job of compensating players with travel and expenses and stuff like that to make sure that they have that type of really good event. And you had mentioned it's really hard to find a team, and I guess looking at it, and we briefly talked about what can sponsor organizations like the size of like that you're currently have now, what type of things can you guys offer teams? Because we briefly talked about it. Like if high res covers a lot of these expenses and stuff like that, what's left that can go ahead and intrigue a team?
Well, I can't go into every bit of our
Yes,
contract,
yes.
but we are able to provide any player for us the full benefits of our sponsor deck.
Okay.
Um, Full benefits of a Team Razor sponsorship,
Mm-hmm.
the full benefits of a sponsor who's willing to cover things like travel,
Mm-hmm.
um, and the full benefit of sponsors who are willing to help with public relations and social media.
Mm-hmm.
We can put gear on the players. We can make sure their computer's running. We can put computers on their desks.
Yeah.
We can get them to events that high res someday won't be paying for,
Yeah, it's true.
and we can do tons of advertising for them, boosting their social media presence, getting their names out there, and hopefully helping them to build a fan base that'll carry over into things like their Twitter followers,
Sure.
Facebook followers, stream viewers. We
Mm-hmm.
can definitely bring viewers to streams, which everybody wants to be partnered. Everybody wants a
Yeah.
subscriber button on Twitch. That's huge. It's great. Um, it's great additional income for any young person out there. That's the type of thing that a sponsor can provide a Smite team right now. And
Man.
you see it every day. Team
Mm-hmm.
Solo Mid,
Yeah.
Cloud9, they're not providing any more in terms of tangible items than we
Yeah.
could provide a team. We can
Sure.
give the same stuff to a team, the gear, the equipment, the jerseys, but they're huge names. So
Yeah.
when those players sign with those
It's brand
organizations,
recognition. Yep.
they get 20,000 Twitter followers the next day. That's what
Mm-hmm.
we're working up to. That's what
Yeah.
we want to be able to provide somebody. So that we want them to want to play for Mortality eSports.
Man, where do we sign up? Come on now.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about it. We talked about Parabellum, and how that kind of came about, the history of you and another gentleman organizing that. And in a little bit more recent news, it was announced, quite a few days ago, that Parabellum would be merging with Its Gosu. How did that originally come about? And kind of who started the conversation? Kind of walk us through that the best you can.
Actually, it all started at the Smite launch. I was not present at the Smite launch. I was
Okay.
supposed to be there,
Mm-hmm.
but last minute I decided, you know what, we don't have a team playing like we hoped to at
Yeah.
one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually gave all my tickets away as giveaways on stream.
Sweet.
But then I decided to save my travel money because League of Legends might have something come up.
Okay.
One of the other sports we're active in might have something come up that I need to travel for.
Okay.
So I might as well save that for now. However, my partner, Cody, and Tridden, like everyone knows him, he went down to the Smite launch. He did a really great job networking. He talked to a lot of people who were important in the community. One of the people he ended up talking to was a guy who you've interviewed previously, and also the former manager of Mortality eSports,
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Cooper.
Yep.
They got to talking. The conversation actually started around our 5v5 tournament
Okay.
and how Smite Central noticed that our 5v5 tournament had become the most competitive tournament outside of high-res weeklies.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, we had already been talking about bringing in outside sponsorship, creating a league, monetizing the prize pool,
Mm-hmm.
and Smite Central wanted to be involved with that. So the initial discussions were all about that tournament and all about joining forces with Smite Central to create an even bigger, better tournament, better cash prizes, maybe some merchandise prizes. And basically, Tridden brought those contacts back. We had some discussions over Skype.
Mm-hmm.
In that process, I met our who's now our primary investor, Hugh Tran,
Okay.
the owner of Its Gosu. Him and I got to talking, and we eventually discussed an overall organization merger.
Okay.
Uh, and if you'd like me to describe that merger, Parabellum eSports merged with Its Gosu, the
Okay.
parent company to Smite Central,
Okay.
and a host of other small companies and websites. They run community websites in games like Dawngate, Smite Central, the original Its Gosu website, which was
Mm-hmm.
very active in Heroes and New Earth,
Mm-hmm.
Battlefield, etc., Dota. Um, And they also have a web development company.
Hmm.
And they've also got a company working on things like browser games and
Hmm.
specific web coding for applications that websites can make use of,
Okay.
including a tournament ticker, which we're hoping
Hmm.
to go live with here soon, so we don't even have to use Challenge or Battlefy anymore.
That's
We're gonna have our
great.
own custom-built tournament system.
That's awesome.
Um, the piece to Its Gosu that Hugh really wanted some help with and needed somebody to kind of run was the esports division.
Hmm.
And after all our discussions, I was invited in to run the esports division of Its Gosu.
Okay.
The result of that merger and me taking over that position was me taking over all of the existing Mortality esports assets.
Okay.
So I had my Parabellum esports assets. I now have the Mortality esports assets.
Hmm.
After some discussion, we decided to rebrand as Mortality
Hmm.
for the name recognition it would provide in a couple different games that we weren't tapping into, and their increased traffic compared to ours. So we're now Mortality esports. I'm the managing director, as well as filling that role of the division leader for esports in Its Gosu.
So, does the League of Legends team that you had at Parabellum at the organization, will that be rebranded to Mortality Esports then?
It already is. In fact,
Okay.
this past weekend, our League of Legends team played in the Western Digital Black Monster Cup,
Okay.
took home some prize money, and they were the first team to play as Mortality Esports since the Smite team, which previously disbanded.
Yeah, that's great. That's rather exciting. So, we kind of talked a little bit about here and there, between them and League of Legends. What is one game that you guys are tapping into very well, very established, should we say, with League of Legends right now, just with the backing from Parabellum. Um, you know, Mortality, thankfully, is jumping right back into the Smite scene here. And are there any other games that you guys are hoping to get into within the next few months? Now that everything, the merger has been completed, and now you're looking to make an established name within the esports scene.
Yes, definitely. Um, I'll save on talking about Smite because I know we're going to get back to it. That's what we're here to talk about. But I actually have a small announcement to make.
Sure.
Tonight, I am announcing the signing of our Call of Duty team. We have picked up a five-man Call of Duty team, four main players and a sub. We are going to start traveling with them here soon to events like UMG Niagara,
Hmm. Wow.
MLG Anaheim, and MLG Dallas when that comes up. We've already brought in specific sponsorship for all that travel.
Wow.
Uh, Razor's gearing them out, and these guys are really pumped and ready to go compete for Mortality. On top of that, we are bringing in a Mortality eSports Academy Call of Duty team.
Hmm.
These are another set of four guys,
Okay.
pretty young compared to the rest of our Call of Duty players, but just exceptional players in small things like the online battles and the regional lands and the weekend online tournaments. These guys are just destroying people. They're taking games off some of the top pros, but these are young guys,
Mm-hmm.
very young.
Mm-hmm.
They probably don't play like the most cohesive, well-rounded team yet, but that's kind of why we're calling them an academy team. We're
Yeah.
going to bring in some coaching for them. We're not going to send them to every event like we are our main Call of Duty team,
Mm-hmm.
but when an event's definitely in reach, not far from their homes, travel won't be too expensive, we will be looking to get them competing too. The
Hmm.
first event that we expect to see them compete in is MLG Anaheim, where we're going to have both of our Call of Duty teams on the ground playing for Mortality eSports.
Wow, that's huge actually. I mean, it's pretty cool to hear that like an organization like this is coming in with a League of Legends team and then picking up Call of Duty team and Academy and then all of a sudden we'll be moving into Smite here shortly. That's huge. I mean that the Academy reminds me of like Complexity in StarCraft 2, how they did like the Complexity Academy and stuff like that. So it's
Mhm.
really cool to see that organizations are still looking to fuel that younger generation and mold them into those pro gamers later on. So I think that's awesome. And before we go ahead and jump more into like the Smite scene, let's talk a little bit last few things about Mortality esports. For those of people that don't know, what goes into some of the day to day of running a competitive organization that some people might look past.
Honestly, I would love to say it's counting money, but it's not at all. Um, Day to day for an esports organization, honestly, all of us currently involved in Mortality eSports are doing this on top of our day jobs. Maybe barring a few of our staff writers, staff
Mm-hmm.
content creators who
Mm-hmm.
might be college kids,
Mm-hmm.
all of us who are running the show, we have other jobs.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean I don't put in full work days at Mortality eSports every night. I mean, my fiance would love to see me, but right now it's handling this merger, handling this transition, and getting these teams fielded. Taking care of an esports organization on a day-to-day basis is it starts with it starts with the players on the teams
Okay.
because a day doesn't go by where I don't have at least one email from one of the now we have uh, now we have 14 players on the
Mm-hmm.
three different teams,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always made myself extremely available to the players. Part of that reason is short-staffed,
Yeah.
not don't have a huge infrastructure yet. Eventually, I assume I'll have managers taking on these duties, but
Mm-hmm.
whether it's something like, I notice we don't have a glasses sponsorship, but I wear my eyes are getting bad. However, I wear really thick prescription glasses, and the gunners
Mm-hmm.
that use those prescriptions are way too expensive. Can you guys do something about it?
Sure. Sure.
I get an email like that. That's a player quality of life issue, and that's the
Mm-hmm.
type of thing I got to start looking at our budget and rebalancing just to make sure this player's comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then to more predictable things like making sure travel set up for upcoming events. Like I said, we have Niagara, we have Anaheim,
Mm-hmm.
uh, future events. Um, Talking to our writers to make sure at least on a every 2 to 3 day basis we're putting out new content on the site. I mean, we just recently made mortalityesports.com active again, but
Okay.
I don't know if you've visited yourself, but we
Mm-hmm.
put out 4 or 5 articles in the last couple days,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got 3 more articles coming out tonight, one about some League of Legends stuff and 2 about the new Call of Duty teams. Talking to um, talking to people at companies that we would like to have as sponsors. Um, and there's definitely a couple ways to get sponsors. Everybody dreams of a big, huge company just coming along and saying, we want to give you some money to operate.
Yep.
But at the point that we are at right now, a large part of getting those sponsorships is the work I'm doing right now to make people aware of us
Mm-hmm.
so they can watch us. And then once I achieve that, doing everything I can to make sure they can see growth for as long as they're watching us, whether it's from Twitter follower boosting, YouTube, receiving a boost in our Twitter followers, receiving a boost in our Facebook likes, putting out more content, putting out frequent content on our website, checking out our Google Analytics, making sure we're getting, at least 500 to 800 hits a day, which
Sure.
is a tough number to hit right now, but
Yeah.
that's our
Yeah. I
goal.
bet.
Um, and then I guess in the chair I sit in, a lot of it is asking my partner, who fills that director of operations role currently, and or one of the writers or the artists, for some different tasks,
Mm-hmm.
doing a lot of task management. Hey, I need this paperwork done. Um, a lot of contracts are written for this type of organization. We
Okay.
technically only maintain very few employees.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else that does work for us is contracted.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
know I can get away with not contracting all of these people and not having things on paper. A lot of esports organizations do.
Yeah.
But one of the things I want to do from the very beginning, even with Parabellum, is I wanted to be ready for that eventual time frame where the government might actually take notice. You have all these esport companies selling merchandise without licenses.
Yeah.
And I got us fully licensed. I registered us in Virginia. I've got a
Okay.
registered agent. We've got full operating agreements, business plans, a, any type of contract you can imagine for each of our support staff and then even the players. And I'm constantly working on that, and that's kind of my specialty in mortality.
That's great because that's a big thing that's kind of we'll tap into Smite here in a second, but that's definitely a big thing which in the scene in an esports scene very early on, that's where a lot of players get burned or organizations get burned and stuff like that, and it's because like there isn't the paperwork there and there isn't the contracts there, and so people kind of play it off as oh it's casual and stuff like that, but in reality, talking about Smite, Smite is moving in this direction where contracts are starting to become a necessity between players
Yeah.
and locking players to teams if they have contracts, not allowing for this type of interaction where jumping teams and we've gotten to that growth now where we're starting to move past the infancy of Smite and now we're starting to move to that maturity stage. So a lot of that professionalism is what is needed in the Smite scene. So it's really awesome to hear you speak of those things within the Mortality eSports organization.
Definitely, in a very short amount of time, we went from two people who took what they would normally spend on what they consider their hobby
Mm-hmm.
money and throwing it all at a small company startup.
Mm-hmm.
And in just a couple weeks' time now, we're managing other people's money. We're
Yeah.
spending exorbitant amounts of money on travel for different players, and it's definitely important to have those bases covered. I know most of the Smite community out there don't really care about this stuff,
Yeah.
but it's a huge part of what I do day to day.
Yeah, for sure. Jumping, so we kind of tiptoed around Smite a little bit. Now we can go ahead and jump into it. So Mortality Esports in the past has had a very skilled European Smite team. Will you guys? And it's kind of I'm saying will, but we've already kind of dabbled a little bit, about Mortality Esports getting back into the Smite scene now that the kind of the rebranding and everything's been done. Let's kind of talk about that. You guys have a strong passion for Smite. You want to see it going through. There's a 5 versus 5 that goes on with the Mortality. So what about this roster play? I mean, I guess you can kind of finalize it here. Are you guys looking to get back into the Smite scene and pick up a new team?
Smite is a game that we consider ourselves recruiting in every day.
Okay,
There are teams on our radar currently.
that's great.
There are players that we talk to on a daily basis. Some players very excited to be a part of an organization, but we may not necessarily be excited about their team. We kind of want to watch
Mm,
how they do.
mm-hmm.
And then there are players who we would love to have part of our organization, but they're more hesitant on joining an organization.
Interesting.
Um, we will definitely keep pressing the issue. I mean, we don't just do this alone. And I know you've interviewed him before, so you know he does this, but High Res Bar, High
Mm-hmm.
Res APC,
Yep.
they're working on getting more organizations involved. They want to see more players signed under teams.
Yep.
And I have regular discussions with them about teams and who we should pick up, who's interested, who's not interested,
Mm-hmm.
how they might be able to help, things like that.
That's great. That's great. And anyone can really throw together a group of 5 guys and then go looking for a sponsor or an organization. But what is Mortality Esports looking for in the team that they do pick up? So if this was kind of a classifieds out there of okay, this is what Mortality is looking for, and people are looking to meet their credential, what would it be?
Well, I have to be brutally honest with you. We are not looking to make profit from the players' winnings. That's
Okay.
not a really smart move for any esport organization because that's not where the profit really comes from. So if the number one team walked up to us and said, "We want to be a part of your organization," unless we knew that somehow we could work a branding miracle,
Mm-hmm.
if those guys were complete they weren't not fan favorites and the community hated them or they had no fan following,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be a really hard choice to sign them.
Okay.
So when we're looking at a team, we're not only looking for good players who are going to get that recognition for being good, but players the community loves, players that like to stream, players that have their own fan followings, players that will essentially sell merchandise. And that's not because we're greedy. It's not because all we're thinking about is profit. That's because the better a player has all that stuff already squared away, the more we can do for them because we don't have to go out of our way and
Hmm.
working day in and day out just on that branding, and we can do more for the players at that point. We can money that we would normally invest into just trying to build a PR campaign for a
Mm-hmm.
player who's normally reclusive. We could spend elsewhere, like maybe sending those players on a trip or something.
Sure. So a lot of people think an organization can just grab a sponsor and a team and they live happily ever after and everything works out great. But tell us a little bit about acquiring sponsors for Smite team. You briefly talked about okay, we acquired a sponsor that will be helping with some of the expenses for travel for your League of Legends team. Well, tell us a little bit about once you have a Smite team and acquiring and the reality behind funding a Smite team.
Um, well, you and I have talked about this a little bit already, but Smite teams don't require a whole lot of funding.
Mm-hmm.
Hi-Rez is really invested in seeing their esports scene grow, and for that reason, they are fitting the majority of the bill, travel, lodging, all of their major events. So a Smite team does not cost a lot.
Okay.
Uh, However, if you are not able to bring in sponsors that will keep those players happy,
Mm-hmm.
then you might be footing the bill to keep them happy, which would mean buying them gear out of your pocket,
Mm.
buying jerseys out of your pocket. Luckily, at Mortality, we've been able to bring in a really great sponsor deck, and since the merger, we've even improved upon it a little bit with the addition of Geared for Gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But we uh, will provide any player playing for Mortality eSports the full benefits of being part of Team Razor.
That's great.
Uh, so any advice I have to someone who's looking to at what the actual investment is,
Sure.
it it could be very little if you play your cards right
Okay.
and you bring in sponsors. If you don't have sponsors, well, it could be a lot,
Yeah.
and or your players won't be that happy. That's not to say every player's out there looking for gear, but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's all about the players.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not taking care of them, why should they play for you at all?
Yeah.
Especially in Smite, where Hi-Res is already paying for everything.
Yeah, that's very very true. So talking about high res and Smite, in the next few weeks here we'll have the high res qualifiers starting. Does that put any pressure on Mortality Esports to get a team picked up by then, or are you guys moving a little bit slower and you're kind of waiting until regionals per se?
No, it definitely does. 'Cause not not because we don't think there won't be teams available or
Mm-hmm.
too many other organizations are going to swoop in and grab up the only good teams remaining, but because we're also heavily invested in the Smite community. We want to be a part of that whole race up to the next World Championship. We want to have a team that from the very beginning of the new season and the qualifiers all the way up into the next World Championship team develops a fan following, and
Mm-hmm.
a large portion of the Smite community is wanting to see what Mortality eSports is able to do at the World Championship. That's what we want. We want to be that. We want to be a part of the community from the very beginning of it. So that's definitely one of the reasons it's important for us to get a team. But also, we love Smite esports, and we really want to feel the team be a part of that.
Yeah, for sure. Outside of operating, this competitive Smite team, as you talked about, Mortality also is now hosting the 5 vs 5, which was that Parabellum rebranded. How can people sign up for that, and what can people expect from that tournament, moving forward?
Well, as part of the merger, um, the Parabellum Weekly was migrated over
Mm-hmm.
to Smite Central.
Okay.
The all the same people are still working on it.
Okay.
Cody Trident, he's still very heavily invested into making sure that tournament's successful. We still want to keep it the most competitive tournament outside of high res weeklies and do even more. But we have chosen to rebrand it under Smite Central because that just makes sense.
Okay.
We have some other ideas for mortality specific tournaments that I
Mm-hmm.
could talk about in a moment.
Mm-hmm.
But it will be the Smite Central Battle for Valhalla.
Okay.
It's the accompaniment to the Battle for Olympus, which are the weekend tournaments when
Mm-hmm.
Hi-Rez is kind enough to ask us to run those.
Okay.
But it's going to continue going on. We're going to start an EU version here soon. So there's going to
Excellent.
be
That's
two
great.
5v5 tournaments a week, North American EU, and we've already got sponsors watching it. They're ready to invest in it when the time is right. They want to see the EU version take off as well as the North
Okay.
American version has, and we're looking at something like a once every month to even maybe down to once every 2 weeks monetary prizes
Mm.
as long as they keep going well and the sponsors are happy and we have a tournament in both region. We want the weeklies we're doing at Smite Central, at least for Conquest and 5v5,
Mm-hmm.
to be the other pro event. We don't want it to be something that the pros do if they don't have any scrims.
Ah.
We
Okay.
don't want it to be a tournament, a casual tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, everyone's always going to be invited, just like the weeklies,
Yeah.
but we want to be another event on the weekly calendar for the pros, and we want them to have another way to earn money every week because ultimately that can only help Smite esports. I mean, we
Yeah.
want this to be a sustainable career, at least for a young person
Yeah.
playing Smite
No, I
in
think
the
that's
pro.
awesome. I mean, I think it's very attractive to the pro scene right now. They don't really have a lot going on outside of like scrimming and doing ranked during the week, so I think it's excellent. I mean, high res has definitely capitalized the weekend for the North American and EU scene, but I think that's huge. To start to add some of these competitions during the week, especially Conquest for sure. So to go ahead and round out the interview, what can we expect from Mortality Esports over the next 6 months? As you're getting reintroduced in the Smite scene. You had mentioned about Call of Duty, but what else you got?
Um, so again, two Call of Duty teams,
Yeah.
events all around the country, hitting up the MLG circuit. Our League of Legends team will be playing into the Coke Zero Challenger Series here again in the summer. Currently the number one ranked Challenger team in game ladder North America. Um, and then we'll be looking to pick up that Smite team. We have some other investments in other games too. We're
That's
heavily
great.
involved with some community stuff in games like Dawngate.
Mm-hmm.
We're watching Strife. We're watching
Mm.
Infinite Crisis. When the
Wow.
time is right, we'll pick up teams in those games. We have the resources, we have the backing, we have the
Okay.
sponsors. It's just about being the right time for the
Mm-hmm.
investment to actually be worth it. And then also in some ways, it's staff.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
if I may, I would like to offer to anyone out there that we are currently taking staff for positions that will create video content, writers, graphic artists. Can't guarantee salaries for anyone. However, we do. You can already ask some of the people that work for us. Uh, we do provide for our employees.
Excellent.
It's not a full-time job for anyone, but if you want to be involved in Mortality Esports, come to our website, come to my Twitter, tweet at me. We'll find you. We'll see what you want to do, and we'll talk about it.
Well, that's excellent. Well, that actually puts us right into the next point there. Where can people, check out Mortality? Where can people get in touch with you? What's the best outlets?
Well, first and foremost, www.moralityesports.com. Uh, Second, our Twitter is at twitter.com/moralityes. If you want to find me specifically, I am at mortality_JD on Twitter.
Okay.
Um, like I said, with the merger and a bunch of new content we're bringing online at the Mortality website, there's still some features missing that'll be up very soon, like
Great.
the contact us link and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
That'll all be available really soon. But if you need to get a hold of me anytime, even sooner, just tweet at me on Twitter, send me a direct message, tweet at me to follow you for a direct message, and we can meet up that way, no problem.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, sounds good. Well, Justin, thank you very much for coming on this special segment of the Smite update. And we'll see everyone next time. Take care.
Thank you.